This hot, this the spot. There it is, pod.com. We're interviewing the best comedians, so tune in quick and get your ears receiving them. We talking about life and laughter, stream right to you from the microphone right to your home, dude. Side note, this might get embarrassing, but no, don't sweat, yo, cause there it is.
Welcome to the There It Is podcast, a podcast for lovers and dreamers and me. I'm your host, Jason Farr. Let's do this. Thanks so much for being here. If this is your first time listening, do subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud, or SoundCloud. I guess you don't have to subscribe to both. Do leave a review and check out thereitispod.com to find out more about the podcast and see old blogs and old episodes. You can also support the podcast. If you go to thereitispod.com, there's a little support button there. So check all that out on the website. Very fun episode today. I have stand-up comedian and podcaster Paul Mecurio. He has a podcast called Two Chairs and a Microphone. He is also the warm-up comic for The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. That's how I got to know him. But he does so much other stuff, and he has a very great, interesting story. He started out as a lawyer on Wall Street. It's very cool, his whole journey. Check that out in a second. We are 1 week away from the election. That was very difficult for a lot of people. And some people are concerned about what's going to happen. They're afraid of what's going to happen. And some of those people are creators. They're artists, and they might be wondering, how do you create something with all this going on? And I just want to remind you and hopefully encourage you that we have been through tough things before, and in history, there's been a lot of amazing things created during tough times. Look at the 1960s, very tumultuous time. Things were very, very rough for people, a lot of turmoil, and a lot of division, and yet a lot of amazing work. Some of the worst things were happening, but yet some of the best things were made. So let's not forget that people were able to get through these tough times, create something that united people. We can do it too. So that's what we have to do. It's what we have to do. Well, without further ado, let's get to this discussion so we can learn more about how to create. Here's my chat with Paul Mecurio. Paul, you have done a tremendous amount of stuff even before you got into comedy, but since you've gotten into comedy, you've done a lot of things. You were a lawyer on Wall Street, right, for a time, and then you started writing for, was it The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, where you first got into it?
Yeah, I was doing M&A deals on Wall Street and writing jokes on the side as a hobby, I guess. I don't know. It was weird. And
how did you even connect with that?
He was performing at a private function, and I just had these jokes written, and I didn't know what to do with them. And I'd always been a fan, and I'm like, might be. I'll give him my jokes. I don't know. I didn't know what I was going to do with the jokes. And then he was, and I went up to him afterwards. I said, I don't know if you need jokes, but I had all these jokes, and I handed him the jokes, and he took them, and he was like, okay. And he really it was like freaky because he really did talk like that. It was it's like they letting helium out of a balloon very slowly. And then called me the next day and said, I need jokes for the Tonight Show monologue, and I'll pay you $50 a joke if I use anything. He said, I think, your writing's pretty good and you write clean. And then a few days later, he paid me $50 for a joke he did. He called me, said, I'm going to do your joke on the Tonight Show. He did it, blew me away. He encouraged me to start trying the jokes out by going to these comedy clubs or dive bars, and I did, and I started to live the secret double life where I'd sneak out of work, and I'd go to these dive bars, and all the other associates were going on dinner breaks, and I was going in a car to like a place called Downtown Beirut 2 was one of the name of the places that I worked, and and I always liked the 2 part. I like they franchised them or something, or somebody blew up the first one. And I was waiting to go on stage one night, and there was a folk singer on stage before me, and there was a scuffle at the pool table, and a guy got his neck slashed across the side of his neck. So it was a drug deal gone bad, and he starts screaming, "He caught me, man! He caught me!" He was drunk, his girlfriend was crying, "Oh my God, look at my boyfriend! He caught me! He caught me!" And the guy on stage just, yeah, so my friend, he just keeps playing. He just keeps playing like he's not getting off, right? And then the MC goes on and goes, I think the show's over. And the MC goes on and goes, all right, you guys ready for some comedy? And he calls me up. He goes, and I say, nice to be here. I always wanted to follow a slashing, which I thought was a pretty good line. And this place was a dive. They had dealers working out of there. There was a sign on the men's room door that said the toilet seat is only to be used to go to the bathroom, not to cut coke. Thank you, the management.
Oh, wow.
There was, it was a hooker worked out of there, and she would give you notes on your jokes. Like she'd give, I like that joke you were doing about, how come you're not doing that joke about cabs anymore? I like that joke, that kind of thing. And so, long story short, I'm standing up there. I say, nice to be here. I always wanted to follow a slashing. And the guy who got slashed heard me say that, and he was like, hey, you making fun of me? And he was really drunk. I didn't take any shit from you. And he takes all these bloody napkins, he wads them up, and he throws them at me. And they stick to my white shirt, my white Brooks Brothers shirt. And I have this blood stain on my shirt. And now I'm, like, determined to get through my set. Like, I'm like, fuck this guy, And I'm trying to tell my jokes, and he turns back to me. He goes, hey, what are you doing anyway? I'm trying to tell jokes. He goes, oh, yeah? He goes, I like jokes. He turns back to the room. He goes, hey, everybody, shut the fuck up. This guy's trying to tell jokes. And the whole place shuts up. It was unbelievable. I get off stage. I go back to the firm. I was way late. I should have been gone an hour. I was gone 3 hours. And one thing leads to another, and I have to go into a conference room with this big blood stain on my shirt, and I'm trying to hide it with like a file folder. And this was now a secret double life I was leading. Nobody in either world knew I was doing the other thing. And I standing there, and my senior partner is screaming at me like, where have you been? What have you been doing? Why do you have a blood stain on your shirt? And before I could say anything, one of the other lawyers goes, what kind of shirt is that? I go, it's a Brooks Brothers shirt. Why? He goes, oh, I know how to get blood out of a Brooks Brothers shirt.
Oh, no.
He goes, club soda and lemon juice. I'm like, what? And another guy's like, no, Armani, that's the shirt you want when you get blood. And I literally turned to them and go, are you guys remaking American Psycho in your spare time? How do you know about this? And then something came up, and I had to leave the room, and I kind of dodged a bullet. But I then was sort of living that life for a couple of years, and then eventually it was like, I got to get off the pot and try this full time, and I did. And I moved to a rooming house. I sold my apartment in New York City and sold everything I owned, kept my car, moved to this rooming house where there was an ex-con, shared a bathroom and a kitchen with other people. You just had a little, it's like 10 by 12 bedroom with a hot pot on the floor, and there was 2 ex-cons, 2 recovering addicts who also lived there, and a 300-pound phone sex operator who sold Herbalife diet products door to door. And I was living the life of a comic, and it was miserable, and wasn't making any money, and I had doubts about my decision, and I was like, what have I done? And I screwed up my life, and I got to go back. And then I got an offer to go back to Wall Street, and I decided to take it. Mm-hmm. So I went back to Wall Street. I recreated because I had gotten audited by the IRS while I was being a comic. My car got drowned out in a flood. Like, just all this bad shit was happening to me. So I went back to Wall Street, recreated my life, moved my girlfriend back into New York City, who's now my wife. We got another 2-bedroom apartment, another big TV, the whole 9 yards, swore off comedy. And then 2 months later, I was back doing comedy again, like a alcoholic looking for a drink. I wasn't happy in that job. I was completely lost. I didn't know what to do. And then I had done a little TV spot and then forgot about it. And then a few months later, I was now my second tour of duty on Wall Street. And I was with this company, this senior guy, the president of the company, actually. We were Phoenix, Arizona, and we were in a conference room with a bunch of lawyers and bankers. And the guy, the president, it's like a nice older gentleman, comes in the company. Our client, the president of the client, comes in and goes, did I see you on TV last night? I'm like, no. He goes, oh, yeah, I saw you on TV. I'm like, no. He goes, yeah. Well, it turns out that they had aired that TV little spot that I shot of doing stand-up.
What was it?
It was just like one of those showcase shows where you're like, like a Comedy Central, like 4 comics. And he basically goes, big pause. I go, yeah, that was me. And I think I'm dead. He goes, it was great. He goes, hey, everybody. My investment banker is a comedian. How about let's go see him tonight down in Phoenix? There's a club. I'm like, no, that's fine. But I found out later that it humanized me to him, and that's why he liked me because of that. I thought he was going to make fun of it. So that kind of gave me permission from the Wall Street world to go ahead and do this and really try it. I think I was
and
kind
you had stability and...
Yeah, I was looking for, there was no stability in going back to comedy, but I had the stability that I was going to walk away from. But I felt like, hey, these people respect this. Maybe I should do it. And then once I did it, went back a second time, people said to me, now you have a career, not just a job. Good for you. Really go for it. And I did, and then got hired on The Daily Show a little while after that, and then it kind of started to take off. But it was a tough couple of years of I was very scared. I had a lot of doubts. I wasn't sure what to do. It was hard to disconnect from the security of Wall Street and money and go pursue your passion and not have a safety net. It was really hard. I wasn't sure I made the right decision. And that's kind of, I think, the big message in that, I think, is it's, you got to kind of really, I don't know. People take their own message away from it, I guess, but one is definitely it's something that you've got to really want because it's going to be painful at least in the beginning anyway,
Right. That's very good advice. I've heard that before, and sometimes people, they have their dreams being a rock star, whatever, and they don't want to lug equipment around. They don't want to be on the road, and they'll say, all I want is to be a musician. Well, not really if you don't want to do that stuff.
No, there's a lot of stuff. I was working on Wall Street, and I was standing outside comedy clubs handing out flyers to get stage time. Like, the idea is you hand out flyers for an hour, they'll give you 5-10 minutes of stage time. I would get stiffed on money. I mean, and I was working in one of the biggest law firms in the world, and the people that were controlling my life in comedy were people we would not have trusted to go get us sandwiches, and yet they had control over my life, and that was the big adjustment,
Right.
And so...
How is this not a TV show or movie about everything you said?
That's what we're working on for me, is sort of a guy that lives a secret double life, and we've got this idea for a show, and so it speaks to a lot of things that people relate to, about, are you happy where you are? If you're not, then how do you change that? And what do you have to go through to change it, to find your happiness? And maybe you have to go through pain and all that.
Had you always talked about political things in your humor, or was that something that really flourished when you got the job at Daily Show?
No, I was sort of dabbling in it. I had a penchant toward it a little bit. Like, there were people that thought, oh, you should talk more about that. And I did, but I didn't want to make it the main part of my act early on because it sort of pigeonholes you, and also if you're doing political stuff, you can really narrow your audience. So it just, over time, it would be stuff that I would talk about, social stuff, political stuff, stuff like that. And it sort of got to meet some people like Liz Winstead, who created The Daily Show, and she got to know me, and we do stand-up together, and she asked me if I wanted to try to write on the show, and I did a writing submission, I got hired, and that's how that started.
Yeah,
so I was kind of dabbled a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, it kind of was there, but it wasn't like the main part of my act.
Since then, I mean, you've been a political commentator to a certain degree on CBS. How did you parlay into that world?
Well, I started to, have a bit of a name of being somebody that does political satire or, comments on politics and pop culture and the media. So I started, I got to go on, I think it was over at Fox News, actually, a show, and then that kind of parlayed into other shows, and then that parlayed into CNN and MSNBC. So people start to kind of know that you're in that world, and you get referred by one person to another. So it stemmed out of my Daily Show background, and, having that show got a high profile, and then, I won Emmy and Peabody awards for it, so like that ups your sort of name value, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So you have credibility coming from that show, because we were, I'm not on the show anymore. I left when Jon Stewart left, but just it was the show that was sort of doing a lot of that at the time, and even that, and I guess Weekend Update on SNL would be like the only other thing that was doing it regularly.
Right. Those are the two big ones. Those are really the two big ones for so long. And now, of course, we have quite a few others.
So many. Yeah, it's so crazy.
Yeah, it is. You do a podcast as well called Two Chairs and a Mic.
Yeah, Two Chairs and a Microphone is on iTunes, and
You had a
and
lot
that
of amazing guests on that, like Sir Paul McCartney and Stephen
yeah,
Colbert and all these Jay Leno and all these
yeah,
big
yeah.
names.
It was pretty crazy how I got Paul McCartney. It was I
Yeah, how
met him
did?
at the Colbert Report. He was doing a live show, and I ran into him in the hallway, and he he was just standing there alone in the hallway, and I I was like shocked that it was Paul McCartney, but more shocked that he was like all alone in the hallway,
Right.
like and nobody was like even there. He was just hanging out, and I went over and I said hi, and I just walked away. I said, just went to say big fan. He comes back. Oh, come back. What do you do? I'm a comedian. What do you? Yeah. What do you? Stand up. Oh, I love stand up. You have a kid? Yeah. You tour? Yeah. Like I'm 10 minutes go by. I'm talking to Paul McCartney like I'm talking to you. And on the outside, I'm like, hey, I'm all cool. Like, hey, I'm talking to Paul McCartney. And the inside, I'm like, I'm talking to Paul McCartney. I was like one of those girls you see in like the movies, screaming. And then I go to the bathroom. I'm just like hyperventilating. And then I go, Paul McCartney should do my podcast. Like, that's what I think. Because I like to talk to people about their process and how they do what they do and why they do it and stuff. So,
Why I started this podcast.
yeah, and how you make things out of nothing. Like, I'm just fascinated by, especially musicians, because I'm not musically inclined. So, I went back and I knocked on his dressing room door and I said, I know this is crazy, but would you do my podcast? He goes, yeah, sure. Just like that. Like that. Yeah. And like in high school, there's like that hot girl or hot guy you wanted to ask out, but they're way above your pay grade. And you're like, you know what, I'm going to ask them out. They'll say no, but I'll know when I'm 90 and on my deathbed that I asked. And like, no regrets. So you say, I'm going to, but you ask them out and they say yes and you don't have a plan. That was me. Because he goes, yeah, sure. How would we do it? And I was like, I'm not exaggerating. This is what I sounded like. I'm like, I'll come to London. And he goes, well, we're in New York together. Why would you come to London? And he said to me, is it easy to do? I'm like, yeah, it's really easy. You could do it on your phone naked from your toilet. I'm like, what am I saying? I'm like, turn into a freak. So I go, look, I'll leave you alone. And he goes, I said, I'll just find one of your assistants. And he goes, no. He goes, don't. They're going to screw it up. You and I will do it. I go, what do you mean? He goes, you and I exchange numbers, and you and I will do it.
Oh, wow.
So I figure I got a really nice blow off. I say, okay. I leave. He does the show. Now I'm rushing to get to the Daily Show. My phone rings, and I don't recognize the number. And I let it ring the voicemail, and this is the message on my phone.
Hey, Paul, it's Paul McCartney here. I'm going to ring you back in 5 minutes to do the podcast thing. I've got some time now. Otherwise, I'm going to run out of time. So if you're there in 5 minutes' time, you got me. Okay, bye.
Oh, wow. And he said he didn't say call me back. He said, I'm going to ring you back.
Yeah. And and he says Paul McCartney. So like, it's like if you told your friend to leave a gag message, it couldn't have been more perfect because no one can question that it was Paul McCartney.
Right.
And it was insane. And I just was like, what? So I call him back, and he gets on the phone. He goes, all right, let's do it. I go, well, I got to find a line. I had to set up a line, and then I call him back and I go, okay, I'm ready. And they go, hold on, he's in the bathroom. And then all I could picture was Paul McCartney taking a shit. You know what I mean? Like,
he
and
could
then
have done it.
yeah, well, it'd probably be a very creative shit, like the most brilliant. It's Paul McCartney. So that's kind of
That's how he came up with the song Jet.
Yeah, exactly. But I really like doing the podcast because it's long form. You could get really. So I have like Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about how he was almost a male stripper for money. I talk about I talk with Bryan Cranston about kissing his first kissing scene in a play in high school and thought this is a good reason to go into acting. But he also talks about his rough childhood with his father and Stephen Colbert and Jay Leno and Sugar Ray Leonard, who I asked, well, the first time you got punched in the face, why did you did you not just say, this is crazy, I'm not going to do this anymore? So it's been really cool. So there's something for everybody. Stone Cold Steve Austin is up right now. There's a really fascinating interview with him about how wrestlers do what they do and why they do it and all of that, and how he got to where he is. So it's on iTunes. It's a free subscription. It's called Two Chairs and a Microphone, and I'm really proud of it. I'm not proud of a lot of things, but I'm proud of that. So,
Yeah, I mean, you won a Peabody too.
yeah, man. Yeah,
so
nobody knows what that is, but I won one.
It's very cool to win
Yeah, it
one.
was surreal. It's like for broadcast journalism. It's that kind of thing,
right?
And it was a bunch of comedians at the Pulitzer Prize, a Peabody Award. It's Pulitzer Prize for broadcast journalism, is what they say. Mm-hmm. We're at the Waldorf Astoria with all these high-powered journalists and a bunch of half-bombed comedians fucking around. It was crazy. It was like, what are we doing here? It was like the inmates in the asylum got loose from the asylum, you know?
Yes, that makes sense in that world. Oh gosh, so I don't even know where to go from here. I want to talk to you about your process and things.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not great at writing material for politics. How do you come about with your material?
Well, we just did some last night. I've been doing it a lot, especially around the election. You kind of have an idea from wherever you're appearing, like what they want to talk about. So then you dive in and you just start reading up on it, and then you want to make a point. So for me, it's either make a point and be funny, or be funny and make a point.
Mm-hmm. And what's the distinction that you draw there? That like if you're making a point, then you're actually trying to say something serious, and then you just find a couple of avenues to say something funny.
Like for example, Donald Trump, right? Everybody talks about Donald Trump, and there's a Donald Trump. Like most people always wanted to have it both ways. So, like, he loved the media when he was using the media in the primary to get all of that essentially free press. But then when things started to go bad in the general election and he got called out on womanizing and this and that, he attacked the media. Mm-hmm. Or he attacked Bill Clinton for indiscretions 25 years ago. Then when these women started to come forth from as far back as 30 years ago against Trump, he and his surrogates actually said, well, 30 years ago, that was 30 years ago. So that's a double standard. It's like, why is it okay for you to go back 25 years and it's not even the candidate that you're going after, but the candidate's husband, and you're upset with people going back 30 years on your shit? So what I said was, there's a hypocrisy there, so much so that apparently that's what he's going to build a Mexican wall out of. So that's how you get to a joke. Now, that may not be the biggest laugh in the world, but it's a strong enough joke for me that I think it's worth doing, and you make a point. Or you can say, this is a guy, you think, why are people surprised about his womanizing? This is a guy that had a public affair with Marla Maples while he was married. He's been married 3 times. Did Republicans who nominated think that because he was married 3 times, he respected women 3 times more? And he's being advised by Roger Ailes. So what is Roger Ailes, who just got booted from Fox News for 20 sexual harassment claims? What does Roger Ailes tell, like 9 or 10 women came out against Trump? So what does Roger Ailes say? 9 or 10? Don't worry about it. When you hit 20, then they fire you. You're fine. You got another 9 to go. So there's a lot of comedy in that. Mm-hmm. But in it, there are things that should be said. Trump never trusted that the American public would be okay with him not knowing a lot. He should have just said, I don't know a lot, but I'm going to learn. And he would have had an easier time of things. Now, he won, obviously, so whatever he did worked. But there was this, America is, and obviously ready for change and an outsider. And I said during the process, it's like he got America in bed as an outsider. He got the bra off and he didn't know what to do with the tits because he kind of didn't really have a plan, didn't care to have a plan, didn't want to know. Kind of like that doctor in an emergency room and you wheel a patient in and he goes like, what's all that red stuff in the body? That's the blood. What does blood do? Well, you're a doctor. Don't you think you should know that? Why are you attacking me? Are you the liberal media? So there's a lot of stuff there, but I think you don't want to do Donald Trump has bad hair jokes. You don't want to do Donald Trump has orange skin jokes. You don't want to do Donald Trump has small hand joke. It misses. It's not, you don't need it. There's a million people doing it. Mm-hmm. There's all of this other substantive stuff that you can talk about and make jokes about.
I think for me, when I'm trying to come up with ideas, I can process the material well. I can understand the differences. Where I get hung up is when it is time to then come up with a joke? Are there some?
Yeah, I think you just come up with a joke when you want to come up with the joke and not worry about it, and also be prepared for people not to get the joke, or especially if you're on a panel with serious people, because sometimes they don't have a sense of humor and they don't get it. And it's like, fuck them,
Yeah.
It's your joke, it's your point of view.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of shitty writers out there. Just because somebody writes a blog doesn't mean they're smart. Just because somebody writes, I read op-ed stuff in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. It's like some of it's good and some of it's mediocre,
Yeah.
So like, there's not this thing of like, oh, you're brilliant, whatever. It's just a bunch of, I don't know. It's really about what you want to say and how you want to say it, so that's a gut thing, and you kind of start to, your gut could tell you like, okay, this is a time where this joke will work here, or this joke's not strong enough,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, yeah, it's sort of it's a thing. As you do it, you start to get a feel for
right. And as a stand-up, I've gotten a feel for things. It's the good thing I'm taking. I'm glad I heard you say it. Is don't worry about it when I, like let the joke come to me.
Yeah, you can't be apologetic in its delivery.
Right.
And it's just, you just got to say what you want to say and how you want to say it, and and then let other people deal with it however they have to deal with it.
Yeah. I want to touch on, because I took a trip up to New York a month ago, and I'm moving up there in late February. But I did see you at a taping for The Late Show where you opened, and I do improv here, and I host stand-up shows and improv shows, and I learned so much. My girlfriend and I were watching, and we just said, "This is stuff we need to be taking notes on this guy and how he's warming up the crowd." Yeah. Oh gosh, we learned a ton watching you do that.
Well, I'm interested, and I'm not fishing for a compliment, because I'm really asking because I really am interested in always trying to be better. But like, it's hard to see yourself objectively. So from your vantage point, like, what was it that's? And again, I'm not fishing for a compliment, but like, what sort of was some of the things that said, oh, well, I should take notes or whatever? Like, what was it that jumped out?
The pacing and how effective you were, because everybody was super pumped up. Everybody was ready. And I think a lot of the things that I learned was, oh, he's giving us a ton of information about what our job is and what it is we're going to be doing and what we should expect. Right. And, if I'm hosting an improv show where we're getting a lot of suggestions, a lot of times me and the crew that I'm with, we maybe don't explain things well enough. And so when I saw you, I realized, oh, he is explaining things on such an exceptional level that we know not only do we have the permission to laugh as loud as we possibly can, but that we have to. We have a little bit of a responsibility.
Yeah, well, that's really observant, because it's the three things have to happen in that warm-up. You have to give information, you have to get them emotionally and literally physically pumped up, especially it's the biggest space that I've worked in as a TV studio. It's basically it's a 1922-23, built in 1922-23 theater with a balcony. It's a huge Broadway theater with 500 seats. It's massive, with a massive dome. Mm-hmm. And you also have to get them laughing really fast.
Yes.
And all of that has to happen in 10 to 12 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's really, really simple performing for people, in my opinion. Just be honest and don't bullshit them, because they can see through the bullshit. There's no gimmicks. I'm not giving shit away. I'm not having someone stand up and fucking sing the Gilligan's Island song. You just say, hey man, what's going on? We're hanging out. This is a TV show. Here's the deal. You get free tickets. You get to watch a major television star and a major TV show, and the only thing we ask you to do is be engaged for 1 hour. If you can't do that, get the fuck out. Like, I literally had to say that last night. We were doing a live taping for Showtime, and there was two dudes on during the warm up, like while I'm having people get up and cheer. They're on their phones texting. Now, they're not supposed to have their phones on at all.
No, they're not.
And I stopped the taping. I stopped the warm-up. I go, you got to get off your phone, and you got to get off your phone. And the whole place got like quiet. I'm like, we're doing a national television taping. If that show and it's live, if those go off, and I said, if you're that disengaged from this, I go, you should go see a taping of Rachel Ray. Not only are those motherfuckers going to stay off their phone, any other douchebag in there that thinks they're going to get on their phone ain't going to get on their phone.
Absolutely.
So I just think it's about being honest, and then I just do what I want to do, which is I want to have a conversation with people. So when I talk to them, it's the same thing as my podcast. I'm really interested, so I'll get somebody, and I bring him up on stage, and he's a plumber, and I'll ask him, whatever comes to mind, like, why does it cost so much for an O-ring on a toilet? And he'll tell me. And I don't care if anybody else thinks it's interesting. I don't really care. All I care about is what I want to know. And as long as I keep that moment genuine, then it should work. But I also have to be funny with it. I have to find somewhere in that conversation where I know there's a funny thing and make it funny. I can't expect that person to be funny, but it's just,
you're real sharp and real quick. It's like just great crowd work.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I kind of feel like it's really a conversation. We all call it crowd work because we're comics. But that word can connote like, what do you do? Where are you from? And then you have a joke about where he's from.
Oh, right.
Where it's kind of fake crowd work. It's like that crowd work.
Which is not what I got from you. It seemed like you were spinning a lot of plates. Like if you were talking to one person, a new person that you had just met, you were still remembering everything you heard about everyone else. Fun part. Yeah, and you're connecting things.
It's like a Seinfeld episode when the three storylines come together at the end.
Yes.
Oh, and you want to be my latex salesman, right? Like when he's on his face, like that's such a brilliant,
such a brilliant line, yeah.
Yeah, and that whole episode is so well written. But like when it all comes together, so I get you from South Carolina and a guy that was in Charleston, but then he moved and now he's living here, and I don't know, and you just connect the dots, and that's just stream of consciousness. No, it's the most freeing experience. It's why I left Wall Street. Those moments. Because, you write the stuff and then you got to remember the stuff and then you got to say the stuff. And that's kind of fun, but it's a little mechanical. This is just me saying whatever I want. Nobody tells me what to do. And I can say whatever I want, whenever I want, however I want. And old people like it because they don't give a shit anymore and they don't have a filter. And young people like it because they don't have a filter. And it's just, and it's also my job to give everybody, those 500 people, permission to behave in a way that they normally wouldn't behave.
Right.
Which is silly and loose. Like, it really is like, you get high-powered people in there, you got retirees, you got college students. So everybody has to have this communal moment of like, we're all here together doing this one thing, which is we're going to act silly and have fun and not worry about shit.
Yeah.
And that's sort of my job too, is to sort of transport them out of their worries about the audit they're going through, or that their daughter's fucking pregnant, or I don't know, whatever, right? Every single person walks in there with some bag of shit that they don't want to think about. So I even address that. I say, look, you can't do like you do it at home and be worrying about shit in your head about your life. Just let's focus here. And then they do. You kind of got to give people permission to kind of breathe a little bit. Same thing with stand-up, I think, in the clubs, kind of. But the improv thing is just about getting out of your own way, and it's cliche, but really listening well.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
And not trying to script yourself out in the moment ahead of time.
You're really sharp, you're really smart, you're really confident. For people who are pursuing comedy who don't have those qualities, is there a way that they can try to grow that in them?
I don't think anybody can be as smart as I can. Let me tell you why. No, that's very nice of you to say, but I'm none of those things. I think that it's just about stage time. You got to get a lot of the stage time, because I wasn't this confident as a performer. And you also have to like people, I think, and like that dynamic of figuring out an audience and the psychology of it, which I really like, and understanding what a room needs, and understanding in the moment how to adjust to make the room be what you want it to be. There's some comics that just do their thing, and this is what I do, and you either come along or not. I tend to do that, but I'm not going to sacrifice jokes if I know an audience in a moment needs a little something else before I do the joke. So I feel like the confidence comes, and the performing confidence comes from just being in a lot of different situations, like a lot, like shit bar shows where nobody's guys literally throwing bloody napkins at me. I got a glass thrown at me in London at a club, big club. The guys, when I was doing fine, they just didn't like Americans. The guy threw a beer glass at me. And this isn't a dive. This is one of the biggest clubs in London. And warm-ups, TV, but all the TV appearances are the thing that really give you confidence. Because when you have to go on CNN, you have 5 minutes with 4 people all trying to get their word in, and you have to be funny. You have to remember the shit you wrote. You have to find the opening. You have to say it. You have to say it just the way you wrote it. It's live national TV. That shit, you either sink or swim with that. And so after that, doing your act is easy because it's your act and you know it.
Right. And it's looser.
You know, so also acting, I act. I'm actually going to be in a film called The Bleeder with Liev Schreiber that's coming out later this year.
Oh, great.
And yeah, so when you're working with that caliber of people too, that ups your game. And I think all of those performances inform you as who you are as a performer overall. Being able to deal with a bar show and people screaming in the back and not paying attention makes it pretty easy to be on a movie set with Liev Schreiber and have it be real quiet and act. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I even had my agent say to me, Liev can be kind of intense and some actors are intimidated. I'm like, I'm not intimidated by this guy. I'll take you to a shit bar up in fucking northern Connecticut where fucking there were 2 fights during my show, like, and I'm still trying to do that's like trying to do stand-up in a hurricane. Things may not seem like they relate to each other, but they all relate to each other.
Oh, yeah. I totally agree with that. I have plenty more I could talk to you about, but I want to respect your time. Is there anything that we could create together? We've kind of talked about things that isn't necessarily a process, except for maybe political joke writing. Yeah, we could. I do want to mention before I forget, November 25th and 26th, I'm headlining at Gotham Comedy Club here in the city. Great.
So I'm doing 4 shows and love people to come see me. And just go to GothamComedyClub.com and they can actually put in the promo code Paul and they'll get special seats if they put in Paul. They offer like limited discounts on some tickets. So it's all caps, all uppercase, PAUL, and it's GothamComedyClub.com, and it's Thanksgiving weekend, November 25th and 26th. Gotham's a beautiful, I'm doing 5 shows, a beautiful supper club there, and I'd love people to come see me for that, and subscribe to the podcasts on iTunes, definitely,
Yeah,
2 chairs,
sure.
But yeah, we can create something.
So what's something that we could do? Maybe, I don't really know. Right now, it's the day after the election. We're recording this, so there's a lot of raw feeling of how do we get through this? The people who, like me, who are a little scared about what might happen next. So I don't necessarily want to write a joke about any of that. But how would someone come up, especially, there are people writing jokes today who might be really upset. So how could I? What is a process I can go through to try to
to try to write a joke about this?
Or
I think one of the things that stands out is that there should be jokes about just how this isn't this all of America looks like a scene from Night of the Living Dead. Like people are just walking around. Like I think that would be a jumping off point for me. Like I think the biggest thing is how shocked everybody is. From the hosts on CNN to Stephen Colbert to me to you. The people that walked out of the taping last night at the Colbert Show literally looked like they'd each been told that their mother just got in a car accident and died. Like they looked shell-shocked. So that's, to me, a big place for jokes. And so that would be one place that I would sort of go to. And then I would do jokes about Trump's enemies list. Like I wouldn't want to be Paul Ryan or, any Republican that wouldn't back him, John McCain. But then I think a joke in McCain is McCain was able to withstand 5.5 years of torture with the North Vietnamese. He could only withstand 5 months of endorsing Donald Trump, and he had to drop him. Like he'd rather. So that to me is a joke.
Perspective. Yeah, that is. I wrote one earlier that. And I couldn't write all of what I wanted to say on Twitter, so I'll just say all of what I wanted to say, which was the thing that's really going to upset Trump supporters is that the only wall that's going to get built is the one between them the Americans.
Right. Yeah, it's. I think there's a lot there, but I think it starts with tapping into what the emotion is.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
That's good to know. And there's also a weird thing, and let me know if there's something here too. You know how presidents in America, it all ends up being kind of a group. They all kind of not work together, but they get together because they all understand what the job is like. Can you imagine the living presidents with Trump standing next to them? Like, isn't he kind of the...
I know.
You would think the odd one out would be President Obama, but it's not.
No, it's like, it's going to look like a bunch of old people who are buying timeshares and he's selling it to them. That's what it's going to look like. It's going to look like, let me show you my timeshares that I'm selling you. And he's the salesman. So it's crazy, man. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Well, we got some jokes.
You got to keep your chin up, and not.
I saw a video that Stephen Colbert from last night talking about his upbringing and what it all was like, and I found it pretty inspiring and a little helpful.
Yeah.
Quite helpful. I was just wondering, what kind of leadership Colbert gives in these sort of moments. Is he helpful for you in that kind of situation? Or is he
a little bit. I mean, I do a lot of that stuff myself, so I don't really look to him for that, nor Jon Stewart. Maybe because I work with them, so I think I see them differently than people on the outside.
Right. Right. Makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, but I do understand how, like, people always used to say to me when I was writing on The Daily Show, "Oh, we only watch our news from The Daily Show." I'm like, you shouldn't do that. You should get your news from a lot of different places and even read countering opinions, like conservative opinions if you're liberal and liberal if you're conservative, and then make your own decision. We're just, I think it's one good source to get their information from, but it shouldn't be the only one. So it's like, I don't really look at them that way.
Right, that makes sense.
Not that I'm an equal. I think in terms of what we're doing and what we're saying, I don't think that he or John or any of these people have any more or less wisdom than I do. They just happen to be the guys hosting that show, and deservedly so. But I do think that they bring perspective that I think helps people and does help me to a certain extent, So, yeah.
Well, it's been very informative and great talking to you, and I appreciate you being on the podcast.
Yeah, so perfect. Thank you, and this has been really fun, man.
What a great chat. So much information that I learned. I hope you learned a lot there too. You can catch Paul at the Gotham Comedy Club in New York City, November 25th and 26th. He's doing 4 shows there. And don't forget about that promo code, all caps Paul. If you can go to GothamComedyClub.com and buy tickets, then use that promo code. You can also check out his podcast, 2 Chairs and a Microphone, and you can check out more about him at paulmecurio.com. Find him on social media. Find me on social media at There It Is Pod and at Jason Farr Jokes. Paul's is very simple, at Paul Mecurio. That's Mecurio. Very simple. Go to thereitispod.com and throw us a bone. We could use it. You can hit the support button if you have theiritis and support us. Theiritis. I need Wilford Brimley. I hope you really enjoyed this. I certainly did. I hope you enjoy next week's. It's going to be a great one. It's with the UCB improviser on a Herald team, Molly Gaby. She is fantastic as a performer and a human being, and we need those. So thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Until next time, folks, be good to each other.
The music for the theme song was created by Neil Brooks. The rap was written and performed by Nick Acevedo. The logo for There It Is was created by Jeff Prater. The There It Is podcast is produced by Jason Farr.